This is Wired for Power, where the energy of ideas meets the force of execution. Let's get to work!
All right, Dustin, I gotta be honest. There are some people in this industry that can be shady. But I think there's shadiness across every industry, and something we should probably talk about today.
Yeah, I mean, not even because it's, their competition, but like I just see them destroy trust for everybody in solar. And when customers lose faith, like we all lose, right?
Yep, that's right. And so today we're going to pull back the curtain on scams and shady practices that have hurt businesses, customers, and the reputation of solar altogether. All right, welcome back to Wired for Power. I'm Amorah Sandberg.
And I'm Dustin Markowski. In today's episode, we're tackling a tough but important topic: the scams that have plagued solar, especially in the residential and small commercial markets, and how you can protect yourself.
So if you're a business owner, you'll learn the red flags and what to watch out for.
Yeah, solar has grown so fast, and which is great for the industry, but it's also attracted some bad actors. And, I've hesitated talking about this topic for some time because historically we've seen the bad actors really on the residential side. But, as the years go by, I'm seeing more and more of these types of questions and mistrust really start to come up on the business side. And so what I think is happening is, one, there is latent mistrust that's coming over from the residential side. The people that we talk to might have solar on their home, and so they have similar, misconceptions or hesitancy to do something with their business because of either something they've experienced or a story that they've heard. But I'm also actually starting to see some of the same problems come through on the business side. So when we talk with a customer and they're like, well, this company over here is talking about doing half the system size and they say it's going to cover everything. Like,
No, you're completely right. There is a ripple effect that happens across from residential to commercial, and I think probably vice versa. But I think most of it happens in the residential space, then trickles over to commercial because most people in commercial own a home or have some sort of residential experience. It's funny that you bring that up because literally today I opened up my inbox and I got a question from a business owner who said, "This all looks great. The numbers look great. We want to move forward with this. But I got solar on my residence. I think it was like 6 years ago. And something happened with some series of panels. I don't know the exact problem, but he said that he had a warranty, but he went back to the business and that business is no longer um, in business. So he said, what am I supposed to do? He's like, is that going to happen here? And so he's bringing that over to the commercial world. So, I mean, we see this
yeah.
every day, and just funny that I heard this today.
Yeah, no, it's that, I mean, yeah, I don't know that, the warranty is hard to say that part of it is a scam. But to your point, your warranty is only as good as the customer will be in business, right? And there are ways to protect against that. There's a lot of really good insurances out there that can make sure that the customer is taken care of. And that's always really important. And, definitely do your research. And we can talk about some of that when we talk about what are some ways to protect yourself.
Right.
But I like the biggest one I see, I'm telling you, the biggest lie that I see told is talking about how this is going to cover everything. You're not going to have to pay anything to the utility company. Like I hear this time in and time out. And in the beginning, like years ago, I was fairly certain that a lot of it was just ignorance. Like people weren't educated on how this worked. And so they just assumed that it was covered everything. And so that's what they said. But there's so much more information out there now that I'm fairly certain that if it isn't people deliberately just trying to get a deal closed, then it's gross negligence because it's so easy to learn that that's not the case.
We hear this all the time. How do you stop against that as like a salesperson? How do you what is the talk track there? Because every time you talk to somebody, they want 100% coverage, right? They want to be off the grid. I
Yeah.
no longer want to pay my utility company, right? And so you
Yeah.
want to be like, we're covering 100%.
Yeah.
We're going to offset you. What do you have to say there? Like, or how do you approach that so that you can kind of make sure that you're leading your buyer to like a more reasonable situation?
Yeah. So it can be complex. I'm going to do my best to simplify a pretty complex situation. But essentially, net metering is the kind of rules, and every utility, every state sometimes has different rules on how you connect with your utility company and how that transaction takes place once you've gone solar. So in um, not too long ago, a couple years ago, it was very broadly something that we would call net metering 2.0, where
Mhm.
in most states and most jurisdictions, you use 100,000 kilowatt hours over the course of a year. If your system produced 100,000 kilowatt hours over the course of that same year, you pretty much didn't have a bill. You probably had like a monthly fee that you were paying for, but that was about it. There are still some jurisdictions to this day that have that, but they're fewer and far between. We're seeing a much larger change to not giving you a full credit for energy that you're producing and sending into the grid. So now what you're seeing is utility companies have changed the exchange because essentially they're losing customers. They're like, hey, how do we make sure that we're still making money? And essentially, they are still delivering a service, right? Like you're still connected to them. Well, at nighttime, if you don't have storage, like they're still sending you power. So there is value to what they're doing. But the exchange rate has changed. So like here in California, anything you send into the grid, you only get credit for about 25% of that. So there's,
Right.
if you're only have solar, you're going to be paying a lot of money to the utility company still. And so that's
Right.
where storage can come in and help that. But just simply having storage isn't the answer. Like it's pretty complex. When do you produce power, right? Well, in the
Yeah.
summertime, you produce a ton and it's only during the daytime, but you use it at night. And I can't produce power in the summer and then use that power
In the
and save
winter.
it in a battery and use it in the winter, right?
Right.
Like I can only use stuff that I'm using at that time of day. So, we did the work and we said, hey, if you wanted to produce all of the energy that you needed, and this is, in California, of course. So if you're in a place where, you have more sun, a place like Arizona or Texas, a lot of times they'll actually have better production or Florida as well than you do in California. But then you also have ones that are worse, like, Michigan, Minnesota, they're going to produce less. But if you're in California, you need a system that's produces about 150% of the power that you need to generate, like using the old model. So instead of 100,000 kilowatt hours, you'd have to produce 150,000, right?
Right.
And then a lot of it you're going to go into the grid, and you're not going to like really get much for it. But it
Mhm.
will allow you to make sure that you're producing enough energy during the day in the wintertime that can also be stored, that can be used. And then at the same time, you need to make sure you have enough storage to use to store what you're going to need throughout that day as well in the winter, right?
Right.
So if you kind of build for like the lowest day and the worst day in the winter, that can assure that you have the closest thing to a $0 bill. Like that's how complex this thing is. So just by simply saying, "Oh, hey, we have this," isn't enough to
Right.
say, "Yeah, we can guarantee you a $0 bill." Well, how do you know that? So there's a couple of complex tools out there now that allow you to say, hey, this is how your system's going to produce energy. We can tell you minute by minute how it's going to produce energy. Same
Right.
thing, most utility companies can tell you minute by minute how you're using energy. We can combine those together and then we can actually design things and say, hey, this is what your actual offset's going to be. And I can tell you pretty much down to the penny what you could expect to pay from your utility company once you go solar. So
But also just explaining that whole story. Sun is not always out. Explaining net metering. That's kind of a good way just to kind of let everyone understand. And so there's not surprises down the road and like feel like you got scammed.
yeah,
I paid all this money for solar and I'm still getting a utility bill. Why is this?
yeah.
Right. And then it's kind of just being realistic, like we're covering 90%. There's these things that can happen and having that real conversation. So if that does come up, there's not a surprise. But it's also going back to just making sure you're modeling out the right system.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And these tools will work for residences or businesses, but
Yeah.
the truth is at least on the residential side, nobody pays for those tools. And I would say 50% of people actually pay for those tools on the commercial side, on the business side of things. So it's just something to, always ask for, hey, what
Right.
is ask for an audited savings analysis. This should be able to tell you exactly what that's going to look like, what your generation is going to look like, and then what your production is going to look like and how those two meet together.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about the number two big one, or the second biggest scam, inflated financial terms.
Oh
Well,
my
I think it's
gosh.
number two, right? So
Well,
sometimes,
it's number
yeah,
two
go
on
ahead.
our list.
I know. Well, sometimes the rates look really good up front, but buried in the contract, you got escalators, fees, things that really add up to make the system cost double sometimes what
Mhm.
it should.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So, um, you know, the with the widespread adoption of solar, there are become so many more ways now to go solar. And actually one of the most common ones, and becoming one of the more common ones as well, is in this business side, is financing.
Uh-huh.
And there's also something called PPA. There's leases. There's a couple of different types of models, but essentially it's all financing. The money's coming from somebody else to make sure that you can get a solar system and then you can use that. And you know, essentially, is financing a good deal? I think it kind of depends. It's up to you. Like, hey, are you paying less
Yeah.
than what you're paying before? If you're paying more, is it for a short period of time and then, it's paid off? Like, those are things that you have to kind of analyze yourself. But
Right.
essentially, what is not usually disclosed is that the fees for financing, because you'll see very low interest rates, on
Right.
the business side, we can usually get down to like a 4.99%
Yeah.
interest rate, which, we know right now that the Fed is giving interest rates out at like 7%.
Yeah.
So, well, how do you give a interest rate that's lower than that? Well, there's going to be fees in there. They're going to make their money one way or another. They're not going to give you a loan that they lose money on, right? The bank isn't. So what they do is they charge you fees for it. And those fees sometimes can be 20, 30. I've even seen fees with 40% in there, which is just
My
crazy.
goodness.
So if you want to talk about, 40% of the whole amount of that loan just go in up front goes to the bank to just give you the loan, which is insane.
And then you still have to pay interest afterwards.
And then you're still exactly right.
So your system, okay, but there are situations, okay, 40%, that's insane in a fee.
Yeah,
Um,
and they're not, listen, that's less common. On the
right,
business side of things, we'll see them go up to about 20%. But
right.
one of the things we do in our business is we disclose all of that, right?
I do.
So like,
Mhm.
hey, listen, the financing fee is like a point, maybe 2 points, right? Sometimes I've seen it even up to 3 points depending on the lender.
Right.
And then but let's listen, like just like any traditional loan, if you want to buy down your interest rate, you can. It's just going to cost you points that go into the principal of the loan. So having that disclosed conversation, having it up front lets the customer know that like, hey, like, okay, I know what I'm getting into.
Right.
And what's funny is so many times people see the payment on the low percentage one and they go, that's what I want to do. And then once you kind of take them through all the things, they're like, actually, I rather pay a little bit more in my payment and have a higher interest rate. And I'm just going to pay this off in 2 years. And so like their priorities shift when they understand it. So it's always so much more important to disclose that, share it, because you're going to end up having a happier customer in the long run anyways.
Yeah, and then they just see it up front, like, hey, you want a lower payment? This is what it costs. You're buying down the points, so your interest rate is lower. Here's the exact cost of it. On the flip side, this costs a little bit more, interest rate goes up. I think it really goes back to understanding what is their end goal. A lot of businesses, the end goal is just to figure out operational costs and stabilize it.
Yeah.
Hey, we can't have these spike months. Hey, we can't get these surprise fees from our utility company. We want something stable. We want to know what we're going to be paying every single month, and we just want it as low as possible. Great.
Yeah.
The overall cost of the system's going to be more, but we got your interest rate lower. Or yeah, those
And
businesses, hey, we're going to do a big fundraise and we can pay this off in 2 years. We just need a loan right now. So it's about being smart as a salesperson, or even just a solar business to bring this back to the buyer and having that conversation to understand what is their end goal.
Yeah. I think that's exactly right. And I think that's a big theme in all of these episodes we've done so far.
Right.
That's been a big theme. It's just like not all, one, ask questions
Right.
and find out what's important to your customer. And then number two, right, listen to your customer and then go down that path. Like listen to what their needs are and then build a solution that fits those things or give them the options that allows them to make that educated decision themselves.
You know what's the hardest part about all of that though is having that
So,
trust with the customer be, because of this exact topic of this podcast, scams.
yeah.
And it's true because, yeah, okay, you're telling me this, right? So if you were
Yeah.
just being completely upfront, like, hey, here's behind the scenes, here's what the reality of the situation is,
Yeah.
right? That's great because the next scam that I want to talk about is the disappearing act of contractors.
Yeah.
That is
This
hard to come back from, right? And so once those things are in their head, it doesn't matter what some of these numbers are, or these inflated systems. It's like, let's actually
yeah.
make sure we show up to the job. So let's talk about that.
So yeah, it's funny that you say that because I think this has been one of the reasons why financing's well, I shouldn't say the only reason, but it's definitely one of the reasons why financing's become so much more prevalent in
Right.
both the residential and the commercial side is when it's financed, like there is something kind of protecting me, right? When that's the lender's not giving out money until they're making sure that the work is done.
Right.
And this is something that I don't know how many stories I've seen where I've talked with somebody and they're like, yeah, like we gave them a deposit check and then we never heard from them again. And so, and a lot of the laws out there are built to protect consumers.
Right.
Businesses tend to do a little bit more due diligence and kind of really understand that. So, are these, is your solar person NABCEP certified? Do they actually have a contractor's license? Do they print that on their contract? Does that relate to either the person or the persons that you're talking to, right? Meaning like, does that represent that person or at least their company or someone attached to their company? Like those are always things that are important to know. Do they have insurance? Have you checked that they
Yep.
have insurance? So are they giving you, are they covering you with their insurance? Like, a lot of customers don't ask for a certificate of insurance, but like if you can give a certificate of insurance for the project that you're doing work on, and you should be doing that as a contractor, right? So if you're seeing
Absolutely.
these steps are not able to be done or something that's not willing to do those things, it
Right.
might be a really good sign that that's not somebody that you want to work with and do business with. But yeah, I get countless stories of where I was like, yeah, I gave them a $10,000 check and they're just bounced. And I'm like, I can't understand. I just can't understand that, you know?
Yeah. And good luck for them being installers again, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But
Exactly right.
okay, well, and on that same vein, what about shoddy installs? They just do bad work, cheap equipment, unsafe wiring. I mean, in solar, we can kind of, the list does go on
Yep.
with bad install work, right? What happens if we ruin somebody's roof?
Yeah.
Those are the big questions that come up a lot, and these things do happen when you have a bad installer.
Yep.
So,
Do you have permits? Have you seen the permits? Right?
yeah.
Have you seen official plans? Have they been shared with you?
Hmm.
Right? Do you know are these all questions to ask and to make sure that's happening all along the process, right? Like are there milestone payments in place that says, "Hey, when we get to this stage and there's something that you can verify, you absolutely know that, hey, at least that work's been done. And so I'm paying for something that I've seen. Right. So all of those things are really important. But like, I mean, I couldn't tell you more how important it is that do you have insurance? Like, do you have insurance? Are we covered with insurance? It is
Right,
so important. If you just get that step done, it will
right.
eliminate like 99.9% of the bad actors out there.
That's exactly right. So, insurance is key because if anything
Hmm.
does go bad, I mean, there's things that just happen on as mistakes.
Yeah.
And we're all humans, right? And
Yeah.
so those things happen. Insurance is always going to have your back. And then being 100% transparent to your customer is what's going to build trust. And I think it needs to happen. It needs to happen more often. buyers need to demand this because it's going to change the perception of the industry, right?
Yeah.
Instead of, oh, I think I'm getting scammed. Oh, this is too good to be true. Those types of things. We start to clean up the industry and we're not going to be kind of stuck in the used car salesman
Yep.
bucket, which happens. I mean, it happens to every industry. Like my background's in software, it happens
Yeah.
there too.
Well,
So yeah.
so we have a national um, franchise, like food franchise, right? Fast food. It's very well known. And we got called, and they called us up and said, "Listen, we have our building pretty much done. We're supposed to be having our grand opening this weekend, and I can't get my permit signed off because the solar people never came here and finished the project. And like most of the equipment was there, it wasn't tied in, and the electrical wasn't done, but it was pretty much ready to go. It just literally had to be connected, tied in, and then approved, right? They had ghosted them for weeks, not responding, not even just answering a call or an email. And so they called us out, and we said, yeah, we'll have somebody there within 2 hours. Went on site, looked at the issues, said, they had the all the plans there, and we said we can help make this happen. So we went and we fixed the problem, so they were able to meet their deadline. And I remember the guy telling us, and we actually did the work for free. But he's like, I will pay you whatever you want. He's like, just tell me the price, and that's what I will pay. We said, you know what? We just want a conversation. We want to be able to talk with you guys. Hey, can we do your other projects? And it led to such a great conversation there. But like, you would think that, even somebody like that's a national fast food chain where they're handling all of their installs, on the level of hundreds of restaurants across the nation at the same time, like they even run into these same issues and same problems, right?
So no matter how big the business, you can be scammed, or ghosted in your project. That's
Yeah.
scary. Gosh, how
Yep.
stressful is that? So even large fast food chains, large businesses can deal with these types of scams. How do they protect themselves?
Yeah. So, well, some of these we've already addressed, right?
Right.
You could vet your contractor, ask for licenses, ask if they're insured, ask for a certificate of insurance on your own property if they're going to do that, right? That's important. If they're able to give you a certificate of insurance and you can call the insurance company and yes, you're covered by it, for a fact if something happens, you are fully covered. You're getting that taken care of. Most of these contractors, their states require them to have certain bonds and insurance in place so that if they drop and leave a job, the state has a fund of money where you can pull from to go make sure that you are whole. So it's always
Mm.
important to make sure that, right?
Is that in every single state, or is this just a few states? I never heard of
Um,
this.
Yeah, so no, a lot of states require that when they
Okay.
have a contracting licensing body. Now, I will say there are some states that say we just look at NABCEP. NABCEP is a certification, a North American certification for solar, basically installation. And they say, hey, if you're NABCEP certified, you're certified to go install in our state. So they have a lot looser regulations.
Mm-hmm.
But if that person's still doing these types of jobs,
Right.
they should have insurance because most big businesses are going to require you to have that and to give it. So if you're a smaller business, ask for the insurance, ask for a certificate of insurance. That's okay to do. If they're unable to produce it, that might be a telltale sign.
I love that.
Yeah.
Um, what about, I think another way that businesses can protect themselves is to really understand realistic ROI.
Yes. So one of the big problems we talked about was, hey, how, is this going to cover 100%, right? How much power is this going to produce? One of the things we didn't talk about that is that there are also actors out there that say, hey, this is going to cover 100%. And they didn't do it off of any actual information. Like what I mean?
Right.
Like they just designed a system that they thought was small, that was going to get you to say yes. And then I've seen this happen multiple times. So what can you do? Well, one of the things we do, and I think you should ask for from your provider is, will they guarantee production?
Mm,
And if they don't produce what they're saying that they're going to produce,
right.
what do you get for it?
Right.
Right? And so that's something that we do. There are A few others that we've seen in the industry that do the same thing as well. I think it's a fantastic process. You can do it on the commercial side as well. Do you
Right.
guarantee production? So are you guaranteed that this is going to produce 100,000 kilowatt hours, right? That gets you closer to that. Now it's hard to guarantee ROI.
Right.
Like, because, can I guarantee that you have the taxable liability to get the tax credit? No, like that's something
Right.
that your accountant's going to have to help you with. I can guarantee that you get it. You know what I mean? Like this is available to you. I just can't guarantee that you actually can take the advantage of it, right? That's something that I don't have insight into. But so there are things that you can do to say, okay, well, what are you willing to guarantee, right? And what are you willing to make sure? And then if you don't, what's my remedy?
And then if you're guaranteeing production, can you also guarantee that production is backed by a warranty, backed by insurance?
Yes. And the
Yeah.
best production guarantee is going to pay you out for every single kilowatt hour that doesn't get produced. So you can actually get reimbursed, because if your system didn't produce enough energy, you're going to have to pay that to your utility company, right? So this type of warranty actually pays you for every single kilowatt hour that your system didn't produce when it was guaranteed to produce it.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then it's not even just having the warranty. I think the other thing that's going to make sure that the warranty happens, just like the story I brought in the beginning. I know it's not really a scam, but it's just a real life story of the residential world bleeding into the commercial world.
Yep.
And saying, well, this company no longer exists, so my warranty doesn't exist any longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have that extra step and make sure that's covered by insurance.
Yeah, I know. We've talked a lot about insurance, right? But
Right.
insurance is the way that you can make sure, like, that you're actually getting what you're being promised and what you're being told. So, yeah, we have there's only 5 modules that we use in our entire business. A lot of companies, like, whatever is available, they'll use it. We only use modules that have insurance built into them, so that if they didn't produce that guarantee, and the manufacturer goes out of business and we go out of business, the same remedies are available to the homeowner or the property owner, the business owner. They can call up the insurance company and say, hey, I have this system, hasn't produced. And they will give them repair, replacement, and reimbursement on those kilowatt hours too. So um, if you can get insurance, and you can, make sure that you do like that. Make sure that you have modules. Make sure that you have equipment that is going to be backed that way. So if the manufacturer's gone, you're still covered. And I would assume, you know, I forget the number of businesses that fail within their first 5 years in this industry that is pretty young. Most of the businesses are going to be there for 5 years or less, right? So how do you make sure that the business is still going to be around to fill out that warranty? Well, yeah, make sure that everything is backed by insurance. So if they're gone, and the manufacturer's gone, you're still covered.
Moral of the story, if you're a business, always ask for insurance. What kind of insurance? Insurance for the build, insurance for the production and the panels, insurance for everything, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly right. That's
I love that.
exactly right. And make sure you have somebody who's willing. I would say too, this is just kind of a side note, like a bonus, if you will. Make sure that whichever salesperson you're working with has the ability to answer your questions. They don't need to be the expert on everything. Maybe they're not the expert on financing, but can they get you in touch with their lender to talk and ask these questions? Can they get you in touch with a master electrician on your team that can answer those questions for you? Like, these are things, like, if they don't have to have every answer. And in fact, if they have every answer, I would be a little concerned. Like, let's hope that their business is bigger than just one person. But, like, can they get you the resources to get those things answered and get those things done for you? And that, I feel like, is always really important.
So on that sales partner track, we have thousands of sales partners across the country.
Right.
And part of us working with these sales partners is making sure that they are ethical and they take the right steps in each one of these installs, in each step when they're working with a client or working with a business. So we want to make sure that they do have insurance, that they aren't over promising and under delivering. And if we see that, we can cut that partnership pretty quick. right? So we're really strict here, making sure that we work with the best of the best and that we are cleaning up really the solar industry in general. So we don't have those lags or those what's the word for it? Those preconceived notions
Yeah.
that this is a scam or this is too good to be true, right? That we're
Yeah.
delivering exactly what we say, and there's no surprises.
That's exactly right. And that's why we've scaled our organization here to make sure that how do you make sure that thousands of people can have the same resource? And so we have a team of folks that support those guys out in the field. So if we need to jump on a call and talk through financing, if we need to jump on a call and talk through, the way that your system's going to work within the grid and how it's going to interconnect, or if you have an issue on a technical issue, like we can answer all of those questions, and we have people that are able to jump on those calls, on those meetings, and be able to take people through. So, I think, yeah, to that point, yes, you can make sure that that's done, and it is a priority for us.
All right, so let's recap. Scams are hurting customers and they're hurting the industry. We know that.
Yeah. Yep. Business owners, be diligent, vet your contractor, understand the insurance, make sure you really understand your ROI on there. Ask for an energy savings audit. It should be done by a third party or third party software and tool. Um, Check your warranties, right? Do you have insurance that's backing those warranties? And make sure you always read that fine print.
Yeah, and then to our sales partners, remember honesty, transparency, these are our superpowers. And these are the things that can change the industry.
Yeah.
Those are two huge things to remember.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with us, right? We create a better system, we create a better experience, we create a standard, then everyone else needs to come up to that same standard. If you're a business owner, reach out to us. We're available at www.power.solar. We're happy to give you a free second opinion. We're happy to look over a contract you have and not even get involved and try and sell you anything and just tell you if we think it's good or not. We've done that multiple times. That's something that we offer to anybody who comes to us and asks. So that's important for us.
And if you're a sales partner, come join us. Power is building the industry right away, and we love for you to help us grow it as long as you're ethical. And that's all we have for today. So we can't wait for you to join us next week.
And let's go build something powerful.